The Doctor. In the TARDIS. Next stop, everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS once again, as we're here to talk The Creeping Death with my partner in time, my great friend, and fellow Titan talker, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I thought we weren't talking Titans this time. I thought we were talking Doctor Who.
But I had to work it in a little bit.
Absolutely, yes. So once again, as we pull back the curtain, Charles and I are currently doing 3 podcasts together, and I am always impressed that he does not get confused as he starts the lead. Like, oh, which one are we talking about now? But we are talking.
That's why I have my copious notes in front of me.
Absolutely. We're talking Doctor Who. We are talking David Tennant.
Yes.
The
Creeping
my
Death.
favorite Doctor, and with Donna Noble. So with the lovely Catherine Tate that I was lucky enough to meet at Dragon Con. Did not get to meet.
And I've been lucky enough to meet as well. So
yes, I got my picture with David Tennant, but I did not get anything signed by him at Dragon Con. So yes.
But I've got his autograph. I have his autograph photo.
Yay!
Because I got to meet him in person, so that was cool.
Yeah, well, I got a photo with him, and I was with my Set Listing Bruce T-shirt.
Right.
The wrong podcast.
See, now he's trying to one up me here a little bit. I see how it is. All right, so everyone, welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere. Here at episode 161, we're going to talk The Creeping Death, like we talked about. So this was the third of the 10th Doctor Volume 3 set. So this is the third and final audio. So if you've been enjoying, hopefully, our little 10th Doctor Adventures Volume 3 little sort of marathon, as we've been hitting these once a month. This is the third and final audio. So written by Roy Gill, directed by Kent Bentley, who's directed the previous 2. And, of course, starring David Tennant as the 10th Doctor, Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. And some interesting guest cast. Lauren Cornelius, who plays Ivy Clark, she played a character named Maxine Mitchell in the Big Finish 8th Doctor audio Island of the Fendal that came out pretty recently. Theo Stevenson, who played Terry Hopkins, was on the TV series Humans, the movie In Bruges, and also the movie Fred Claus. That was the one with, I can't remember the actor's name, but look it up. I'm trying to think of his name. It's blanking on me. Kieran Bew, who played Richard Cooper, he was actually on the Doctor Who TV episode, Oxygen, where he played the character Ivan in that story. So here he's doing an audio character. He was also played the character Arthur Kettleson and Barry in the 5th Doctor Big Finish audio, The Lady of Mercia, which is a fun one with Janet Fielding as Tegan. And he also was in the movie Alien vs. Predator, believe it or not, which is kind of an interesting little trivia tidbit. Mm-hmm. Stephen Critchlow played Malcolm Wishart, the guy, the vacuum cleaner salesman. He was the Earl of Wessex and Professor Fester in another the same Big Finish audio for the 5th Doctor, the Lady of Mercia. So we have 2 actors from that story. He played a character named O'Keefe in the 6th Doctor, Big Finish audio, The Nowhere Place, Colin Baker one. And also he was on the TV series Downton Abbey. So interestingly
very nice.
Interestingly enough, Helen Goldwyn, who played the dual role of Alice Aiken, the rather rich and spoiled Alice Aiken, and also the Fumifugium, which is a fun little name to say, Fumifugium. She played the Wax Marie in Tom Baker, Fourth Doctor audio adventure, Gallery of Ghouls. She played Triskel in an Eighth Doctor Big Finish audio Storm Warning, which was the very first Eighth Doctor audio adventure for Big Finish, which introduced Charlotte Pollard, a particular favorite of mine. And Professor Crane in a War Doctor audio adventure, The Shadow Vortex.
Ooh, okay.
She's done a lot of other Big Finish audios, but those are some of the highlights, so I thought I'd mention those there. But she's definitely a Big Finish veteran. So before we get into our main topics, I've got 3 topics I want to talk about. Jesse, what's your general thoughts on this one?
So I thought this was a pretty good audio drama. A few more characters than I normally like because you got to keep the voices straight, but
well, they kill off a couple of them. So.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. I like that. As usual, the TARDIS took them where they needed to go, not where they wanted to go. So they missed it by a decade,
right?
Where they were going to go. And we got a little bit of discussion in the 50s about an alternate couples,
yes,
and alternate lifestyles, which I thought was handled very well. And made for a very interesting storyline. I liked that a lot. How about you, Charles? What did you think of this one?
I enjoyed this quite a bit. I think the pacing's really well. I love that all the characters kind of get engaged with each other right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And it makes for a very interesting dynamic because they're all struggling to stay alive, and they work together. So it feels like much more of an ensemble cast audio.
Yes, it does. It did really well.
And some interesting characters, and they actually develop the characters, the new supporting characters a little bit, give them their own distinct personalities and backstories, and I think it's a very solid story in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so without any further ado, or don't, take your pick. Topic number 1, let's talk about right off the bat, the 10th Doctor and Donna in their last audio adventure for now. And I want to get your thoughts on the two of them. They're heading for 1967 swinging London, only to kind of end up in the Great Smog of London in 1952. And what your thoughts on those were as they kind of obviously end up splitting up. The Doctor ends up meeting up with a young usherette named Ivy, while Donna encounters a rather nearsighted young man named Terry.
Yeah, really, really a good storyline.
Right.
It's always good to have Donna and the Doctor back together. I have been on record, and I'm repeating myself, but I think it's fair because I've often criticized Donna as a companion, and I've learned to appreciate her a lot as we rewatch these episodes. And I think they have a fun relationship, and it is.
Has it helped your appreciation of Donna at all?
Totally. I really, she is. It's hard to rate. The more you learn to love the Doctor, it is tougher to rate companions and doctors because each of them are so unique. I think you have sentimental reasons. Like one of the reasons I love Martha is she was one of my first crushes as a companion. And then I really love Jamie, as a companion. Absolutely, all the other companions right. Why am I drawing a blank to Tom Baker and
Leela?
No,
Romana? K9?
Yes,
Sarah Jane
Yeah,
Smith.
Sarah Jane. Thank you. I could not remember Sarah Jane Smith. I wanted to go Bobby Jean, and I'm like, no, that's a Bruce Springsteen song. Yeah, so they're all great, but Donna.
Damn you,
really,
Springsteen!
Yeah, Donna is unique. She brings a lot of, this. There is no romantic between her, which they do. They tend to do a little bit more during this modern era, though I think they've gotten away from that now, and I'm glad. So yeah, and she just has a fun banter with the Doctor that's always fun. And they stepped right into it this on the audio, and he actually makes a point. At one point, I didn't write down the specific logs, but he made why do they always run away?
Yeah.
They just are strays. They just wander off.
And you notice, I'm glad you brought that up, because if you notice, it wasn't Donna who wandered off. It was the Doctor who wandered off.
Yes, but that's how
he's blaming the companion.
Of course.
Because it's never his fault, right?
It's never.
Or her fault. Let's be current.
Yes.
So it's never his or her fault. This one, it was definitely the Doctor wandering off because the Doctor was curious, and so I thought it was. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that one jumped right out at me. I'm like, wait a minute, it's not her fault. It's your fault. The setting of this story, which is something I find very interesting, the Great Smog of London. This isn't something that Big Finish just cooked up for themselves. This is an actual historical event. If you've ever watched the Netflix series The Crown, you know that they devoted. I'm a big fan of the series The Crown. They devoted an entire episode to this Great Smog of London, as you got to see Queen Elizabeth dealing with that particular crisis, and it was definitely affected a lot of people. A lot of people died from this. As the Doctor himself explains, this thing was an anticyclone that was like over the city, creating this inversion layer that trapped the smoke. And apparently, as the temperature drops, people were reaching for their coal, which was very prominent at the time, to keep warm. They were using coal to keep warm, which, of course, burning coal, that kind of makes it worse. So essentially, it's like this kind of like almost like a big greenhouse effect. And it just created this rather toxic smog that especially if you're someone with lung issues, or you were prone to being vulnerable to this, a lot of people died from it. So very serious stuff.
I had forgotten that they did cover that. It was like the 4th episode, I assume, of the first season, maybe second.
I think it was
the Crown.
I think it was the second, if I'm not mistaken.
And according to this, like over 4,000 people died.
Yeah.
They
really
nice.
They say here like there could be as many as 12,000 dead here. So they mentioned that the official numbers, that. Are kind of in contention, debate, if you will. Good. So that maybe they don't want to publicly admit how many people actually died from this thing.
And I think what I'm reading here, this was the Times,
right,
saying that 4,000 people died as a result of it directly, and then I think the other long term. So that's.
Apparently it kind of leads to like the government creating the Clean Air Act to try and improve things, and so it did have a positive benefit, because obviously I've been to London. It's not like that at all. London is an extremely clean city, far cleaner than here in the States, so I can't imagine seeing the city like that, after having visited that place. So very cool. But the Doctor's fun. Like he gets to meet this usherette named Ivy. They kind of hit it off pretty quickly, and you kind of get this vibe that almost like Ivy. And we'll talk about Ivy, Richard, and Terry in our second segment. But I kind of got the vibe that Ivy was almost like a potential companion. Like maybe the Doctor was auditioning for another stray.
Yeah, and I love how he calls her full name, Ivy Clark. Mm-hmm. Well done, Ivy Clark.
Right. Good
job, Ivy Clark. Yeah, yes. I liked her a lot. Very, very
likable character.
Yeah, very likable character.
Yeah.
Yes.
And and he noticed, right off the bat that she was very intelligent, very, picked up on a lot of things. So you could kind of see her becoming a companion. So those always kind of make for interesting characters that the Doctor kind of has an interest in almost. And it kind of immediately they take on that kind of mentor companion relationship. And then Donna meets this guy named Terry, and we'll talk about Terry, like I said, a little later, but he saves her because Donna's out there fumbling around in the smog rather, and she almost walks out into traffic, and Terry saves her but from being run over. And and they kind of strike up this friendship, especially once Donna learns that he's gay. And we'll talk more about that in the second segment. But Donna thinks it's really cool, and obviously Terry, being from 1952, is obviously ashamed of that. And we'll talk more later about that. But it's very nice to see Donna's sympathy toward him and understanding. And again, it's great to see Donna caring for somebody like that. So looking out for that person, even when they're not expecting to look out for themselves at that time. Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting about the Doctor and Donna in this episode, once again, we kind of get a reference to the fires of Pompeii in this story.
Yes, we do.
Where Donna's hinting that they need to save people. And so we kind of get the impression that this is pretty close to that story. It takes place shortly after. So again, we have a lot of lingering effects, and one thing that, especially that we've noticed in this particular trilogy, as we've talked about it, of Big Finish Audios, is that they really tried to emphasize how much the fires of Pompeii really affected the Doctor and Donna's relationship. Yeah. And so, did you appreciate that being name checked here?
I actually did. And him also. She's saying that you can do some good, right? And he brings up the fact, well, I will do what I can, and I think she's okay with that, right? And I think it's a good thing to remind her. She cares about people a great deal, and I think it's as one of the things that a companion does is reminds the Doctor that they're not all cloned pets that you can just recycle. Right.
Yeah, I see. You just referenced our previous Watchmen discussion on the Phantom Zone. I see what you did there.
Yes, I did.
You thought you could slip that one past me. I see all right. One other thing that I really liked is just a little trivia bit, but I like the Doctor referencing the fact that he has a respiratory bypass system, which is something we don't get to hear often in Doctor Who. No. This is something that's been established in several episodes, like a particular Peter Davison episode that sticks out in my mind, 4 to Doomsday, mentions this. So I really appreciated that, getting name checked here. But it's,
I did not know that.
I thought it was very cool. So essentially the Doctor says that, well, I can go out in the smog because I'm able to kind of shut off this particular my respiratory system, so I can function in like in 4 to Doomsday. He does that. He can function in a vacuum of space, but here he does that so that he can get through the smog. And I thought it was someone who obviously was a very big fan of Doctor Who. The writer of this story, Roy Gill, knowing his Who, and so I appreciate that. So it's something that doesn't get brought up often, so I just thought it was cool. All right. Anything else about the Doctor and Donna before we move on?
No, can't think of anything. I thought it was, really good stuff, and I loved hearing it. So, yeah.
All right. So topic number 2, the love triangle of Ivy, Richard, and Terry. So let's talk about this. So Ivy mentions to the Doctor that, she's got this guy that she's sweet on, that she would like to be her boyfriend, named Richard. And Terry mentions to Donna that, hey, he has a boyfriend named Richard. And so immediately once Terry's revelation comes out, you can immediately see this coming, that apparently Richard has one or two things he probably needs to tell Ivy that he hasn't told her. And obviously that kind of comes into play here. So what did you make of these three characters and their kind of love triangle that ultimately gets worked out?
So I really liked this this subplot. The idea that here's people in the 50s,
right,
very afraid of coming out of the closet, to express.
Yeah, the time you definitely have to keep into context here.
Yeah, and so to have how free they felt that Donna was like, oh, I don't care, that we don't care, was really well done. I thought that was nicely handled. And I also like that when we wrap this up, there was Ivy was like, well, I've kind of known this without thinking about it myself, so I thought it was a really a nice ending, and the idea that these three may be their own companions, going off and having adventures, starting their own life somewhere, I liked a lot. So yeah, I think in fact, to me, this subplot is the reason why this was better than a normal audio drama.
Right.
Because, okay, yes, we've taken a historical event. We've added a supernatural alien presence to it. The doctor fixes it by doing googly gawk and, using,
Is that a technical term, googly gawk?
Yes. Using a thingamabob that he creates, whatchamacallit, and yalla, we fix things. And I'm not criticizing that. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah.
But having this relationship in the discussion, to me, makes the episode better.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, I think so. I really like this triangle with Ivy, Richard, and Terry, especially with the setting 1952. It has a lot of impact because at the time this was considered against the law. So
Yes.
obviously Terry and Richard couldn't talk about it openly. You mentioned Ivy kind of suspecting, but not really clicking in her head. And then so it's kind of a situation where, well, once the truth comes out, Ivy's probably going, oh, that's why he's not interested in me. I get it now.
Exactly.
And she was obviously let down by this, but she wasn't, heartbroken about it.
Right.
And I thought it was very sweet where Richard and Terry, even though they're obviously they stay together as a couple, they talk about traveling. They talk about they've finally taking the doctor's advice because the doctor had told Ivy, hey, you need to get out and get out of the city while the smog is going on.
Yes.
So why don't you go to Brighton, which is a popular holidays area. And get away from London and do yourselves a favor. So it's kind of nice that once they have this bus that they can travel wherever they want to go. Terry and Richard make plans to go to Brighton, but Richard asks Ivy to come along.
Yes,
so
I like that.
So they kind of included her, and I really kind of like that
I did too.
Even though obviously things aren't going to happen romantically between Richard and Ivy. Richard still wants to be friends with Ivy.
Yeah, and I like the idea that Richard, we can be friends, and also she doesn't want to go back to that to be an usher at the cinema.
Right. She wants a better life. Yeah, bigger life.
And I think together they can do that.
Yeah. And obviously, probably her experience with the doctor has kind of changed her to be more adventurous, get out there and appreciate life more. So,
absolutely.
So again, you've kind of got the doctor indirectly changing someone's life.
Absolutely.
That was really nice.
I did too.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about these characters?
Nope.
All right. So let's talk about our third and final topic. I know we're kind of breezing through these pretty quickly here.
Well, it is. I mean, I don't mean it's a pretty basic
story. Yeah.
Yeah. Story. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So third and final topic. Let's talk about Alice and the Fumifugium.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of introduced to what's her name? Alice Aiken. That's her last name. Alice Aiken, and played, of course, by Helen Goldwyn. And Alice is essentially this bus passenger that kind of gets stuck when the bus that she's on ends up, or actually what happens is that she was driving this really fancy Rolls Royce or something, and she hits this bus carrying Malcolm and some other passengers. And so they end up at this garage, this bus garage, where Richard works.
Yeah.
And so it's essentially she's kind of stuck in there until arrangements can be made. But you kind of get the vibe that Alice, she's an actress, and she's very superficial, thinks kind of highly of herself. And kind of she's kind of amused by the whole thing. Once she finds out about the love triangle of Ivy, Richard, and Terry, she thinks that's terribly amusing.
Yes.
And she kind of loves the awkwardness of the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that in addition to the fog being toxic, there, of course, is a nice alien menace lurking in the shadows in this one, which turns out to be the swarm of creatures called the Fumifugium. And they're first encountered at Ivy's movie theater, where they're kind of like blocking out the projector light, and and it's almost like this, the swarm that apparently gets in through a vent, and the doctor realizes, well, hey, they seem to be attracted to the pollution going on. And he kind of pieces it together as only the doctor can. And ultimately, the swarm, this Fumifugium, enters Alice's body, kills her.
Yeah.
And essentially steals her voice. But it's kind of interesting that these creatures take over her body. Now, were you at all surprised that Alice died as a result of these? Like, did you see that coming, where she would be killed and taken over by the Fumifugium?
No, I didn't. In fact, I did not understand why she was in the episode. I don't think she was needed, and really, I think the only reason she's there is to give.
Well, she was a horrible person that got what she deserved, essentially.
Yeah. So I think it gave us it gave us the ability to have the aliens talk to us,
right.
And without us being unhappy that somebody.
It's audio, so it kind of helps when the aliens can talk to us.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Because they kind of steal her voice and use that to communicate with the doctor.
Yes, absolutely.
Which helps. Now, the big plan is we find out that apparently the Fumifugium were drawn to the Industrial Revolution on Earth, and they apparently encouraged all the smoke and industrial development because they fed off the pollution, like they said.
Yes.
And now they're in this spawning frenzy. Mm-hmm. So essentially, like they're kind of like insects, but they kind of spawn like salmon, as we find out. So tribbles. Yeah, but it's more like they have to go back. The reason I bring up salmon is that they have to return where they came from.
Ah, okay. Well done. Yes.
Yeah. So, and apparently we find out that where they came from was there's like this meteorite that came to Earth that contained the Fumifugium, and ultimately that leads us to go to the National History Museum.
Okay.
Which is an actual place. I've never been there. That's one of the places I haven't gone to while I was over in England. But apparently they have this, like, the meteorite ends up in the Hall of Minerals.
Mm-hmm.
And so while the doctor and Donna and the others end up like going to the museum to retrieve, the doctor figures out that, hey, they must have came from a meteorite, which is probably in the Hall of Minerals. So they go there. And Donna and Terry look for that meteorite. They find the meteorite, and ultimately that gets used to end up trapping the Fumifugium later on in the big climax.
Yeah.
So what did you make of the Fumifugium as an alien race?
I
Were you
they were
they
weren't
were they
great.
good?
They were okay. I mean, I wasn't that impressed with them.
Yeah.
They were just kind of a villain.
Yeah.
One of those where they're not totally evil.
Yeah.
This is just, the whole scorpion on a bridge, with the, like it's their nature.
Right.
So I'm okay with that.
Well, did you notice though the doctor gave them a choice? He does say that, like, look, okay, Fumifugium. I just kind of like saying the word Fumifugium. I think it's a funny word.
I know you do. You do say that very well.
Yeah. It's a tricky word. I figured that's why Jesse's not talking about it, because he probably would trip himself up on that word.
That is exactly right. And so, yes.
So the Fumifugium,
easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say. Apparently
yes,
it is.
I'm
Fumifugium.
saying
Fumifugium. So doctor gives them a choice. Like, look, you just hop into your little meteorite there, and I can take you wherever you want to go. I can relocate you. And they're like, screw that guy. We're staying here because we love it here. It's polluted. This is right up our alley. And we're not going anywhere. So did you appreciate the doctor giving the Fumifugium a choice?
I always love when the doctor does that. And it is something that he does fairly often.
Right.
That he and just once, I would love for someone to take him up for that. Someone actually to say, "Okay, doctor, that's a good idea. Let's I'll let you take me to a new place and we'll settle a new world."
Right.
It doesn't happen very often. I want to say I never can remember it happening, but
what fun is that? Boy, we want to see. We saw the aliens. The doctor have to take them out because hey, they're being jerks.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I think they were okay. Not a big, not. I don't think a memorable alien. I don't know if we'll want to see them again, but they worked in the context of the story.
Yeah. Now, one of the cool things I thought was a fun little bit in the story is because they're in the Natural History Museum, the Fumifugium decide, hey, we can attack these guys by inhabiting the bones of a Diplodocus dinosaur.
Yes.
So were you at all surprised by that development, or did you think it was a fun moment, or no?
Yeah, it was a fun moment, but because you couldn't see it, it wasn't as fun as it would have been if you had seen the CGI dinosaur. It would have been more a lot better.
Yeah, it would have been more effective on TV.
Though I did think the payoff of it when it fell apart and all the bones are scattered, they're like, oh, we got to put it together. That was fun.
Yeah, I like the fact that there were consequences because, okay, all these bones are scattered all over the place. Now, they could have just said, okay, we're going to leave these for somebody else to figure out what the hell just happened.
Mm-hmm.
But the doctor's like, no, we're going to carry all these bones back and we're going to put it right back in place.
Yeah, I did like that.
And Terry's like, that could take all night.
Yes.
And it does. So,
it does.
I thought it was funny because normally the doctor's just like, we're just going to leave.
Yeah, we'll just,
They'll deal with it.
Exactly.
It's cool. So it's kind of the doctor surprisingly taking responsibility a little bit there. But I thought it was pretty cool. I just the Fumifugium, I think I agree that Diplodocus scene would have been much more impressive on video, than audio. But it made for a fun scene, and I really like the fact that the ensemble cast was working together.
Yes,
as part of the doctor was using all of them, all of them that survived. That is as a team to stop the Fumifugium. So I kind of like the fact, and they all seemed like they had their own individual skills that they brought to the table.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Anything else about the story before we move on?
Nope. It was fun and certainly a worthy addition to the Big Finish audio collection for the 10th Doctor and Donna. So, yeah, very happy.
Great. So were you in general, looking back on these three audios, were you satisfied with them?
Yeah, I think so. I thought it was definitely a good selection. Some neat stories. I think the second one a little bit was my favorite, but
Right.
this one was really good. A lot of good lines in this one.
Yeah, there were. So that's a great transition, by the way. I see what you did
Mhm.
there. So
Thank you. I
so
was
what
trying to do my help.
you did fantastic. So what was your favorite lines?
So at the very beginning, when they think they're in 1967, and the doctor's talking about Pink Floyd and everything,
I've
Donna's
got that full quote, by the way.
okay. I've got the last part of it where it goes,
Okay.
"I'm gonna head to Carnaby Street, bag myself a Beetle."
Donna's saying that, by the way.
Yeah, and the doctor, I don't know if you can do that. They aren't free range. And Donna, shut up. I'm doing that or one of the kinks.
That was fun. That was
Yes,
good.
that was very fun.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That was one of mine. I definitely like that.
Yeah.
The doctor, where he's talking to Ivy, and he's like, singing in the rain. Oh, that means it's 1952. And Ivy goes, of course it's 1952. Where have you been? The moon? And the doctor replies, oh, you don't want to go there. Full of dust and angry space rhinos.
Mhm.
So I thought it was
Yes.
a nice little nod to the Jadoon and the Martha's debut story. That was fun.
Yeah, very very fun story line when I believe it's Ivy says to the doctor, "Aren't you forgetting something?" And he says, "Always." just the
Enthusiasm.
energy, yeah, the enthusiasm of yes, of course I forget something. That's what I do.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Terry talking to the
Mhm.
doctor about vacuuming up the Fumifugium, where Terry goes, pity you couldn't vacuum the whole lot of them up like you did before. And the doctor replies, it's one thing to catch a agglomeration. It's another to bag a swarm. It's a question of scale. Also, creating a vacuum around all of London would work to nasty side effects. The pigeons would be furious.
Yeah.
That was-
There's a great line between Donna and the doctor where after he used his psychic papers,
I've got that line. Yeah, go ahead.
does that thing ever need batteries hooked up?
Oh, you did.
And the doctor, it's paper. What kind of paper needs charging?
That was good. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
That was a fun quote. So a lot of good lines in this one. I thought it was a very well written script by Roy Gill. So
Yeah. Two others.
go ahead.
There was a slide line that I think is a reference to past doctors.
Yeah.
When the doctor says, me and heights don't always work out.
That was a past reference because that was
Okay.
referencing when the fourth Doctor died falling off the telescope in Legopolis at the end, regenerating into Peter Davison's fifth Doctor. So
Yes, I thought that was a slide of that.
Yeah.
And then the last one was, Donna, you can drive a bus? The doctor, I can drive anything.
Yep.
It was just awesome. Yes.
Well, if you think about it later on, he drives a bus, the Mighty 200 in Planet of the Dead. So
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was cool. All right, so what's your rating for this one?
So I'm going to give this 8 out of 10 ice creams that you get at the cinema.
Nice. I actually like this one a little bit more than you, so I'm giving it 8.5. Animated dinosaur skeletons.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, so I enjoyed this one quite a bit, and it's been a fun little trilogy.
Yeah, it is.
And so it's great. Always great to check in with Big Finish.
Absolutely.
Especially when David Tennant's doing, like either Billy Piper or Catherine Tate.
Yeah.
Hopefully Freema Asiaman next time.
Yes, that would be great.
Everybody's hoping that that's going to be the next 10th Doctor audios in 2020. So fingers crossed for that.
Very disappointed that I did not get to meet her at Dragon Con as her being my favorite doctor. She was only there for a limited time.
Her favorite
Didn't
doctor?
work it out.
Freema
Her favorite
Asiaman?
companion. Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Well, she is a doctor, so that's, I guess.
She is a doctor. I guess he could be, yes.
I guess that counts.
And
yes.
she's playing a doctor on New Amsterdam. So, yes.
Are you watching that show?
I am. And
is it good?
It is very good. And Linda's always like, really? She was on Doctor Who? I'm like, yes, she was. Yes.
That's Martha Jones.
Yes, it is. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So do we have
a reverse the polarity?
Yes, we do. Yes.
All right. So reverse the polarity this time. We're going to reverse the polarity all the way back to 1977. So if you enjoyed this story, The Creeping Death, I recommend Horror of Fang Rock. This was the first serial of season 15 in 1977, written by the late Terrence Dicks, who passed sadly this year. So it's kind of nice to give Terrence Dicks a little shout out to one of his stories. This story is a Fourth Doctor and Leela adventure. So I'm sure Jesse would enjoy this one. Main reason I chose this one is, they're kind of way on to show Brighton to Leela. So we get a little Brighton shout out already. So that's a good connection. And then the TARDIS ends in the island of Fang Rock off the south coast of England in the early 20th century. And it's like they notice that there's like a lighthouse, but it's not working properly. So, of course, the Fourth Doctor decides to investigate, and as well as to ask for directions, as the TARDIS seems to have gotten lost in the fog. So what you have in the story is that you have a very gloomy, foggy setting. So it's very much kind of like the smog in the sense that, like things could be lurking out there. Yeah. You can't see where you're going. And so they go to the lighthouse. So that's kind of like the main comparison is the fog versus the smog. And essentially what they do is they go there, they find a dead body of one of the keepers named Ben, and there's like a couple of other guys, and this old superstitious guy named Reuben, and then the younger guy named Vince Hawkins, reporting that a light fell from the sky near the island, kind of like a meteorite a little bit in the story. And so ultimately, to kind of make a long story short, they ultimately, that thing that fell from the sky was actually a ship containing Rutan, which is an enemy of the Centaurans. So there's like a lot of some of the Centauran stories. They mention this war they have with the Rutans, and this is the only episode where we actually get to see a Rutan, and who's kind of like this creature lurking. That kind of goes throughout this lighthouse and is this big alien threat. And so it's kind of like this green blob, like an amphibious life form. Its scout ship crashed in the sea, and it's trying to summon its mother ship. So obviously the Doctor and Leela save the day. And interestingly, there's actually consequences a little bit, because at the end of the story, there's a laser that destroys the Rutan ship, and Leela's momentarily blinded. But as a side effect, the blinding flash turns Leela's eyes from brown to blue, which is Louise Jameson's natural eye color. The reason they did this was because Leela, she was wearing brown contact lenses, and apparently they were affecting her eyes. Okay. So they decided to ditch the contacts.
Okay.
And let Louise Jameson have her normal eye color, but they had to kind of explain it, and that's how they explained it. So if you enjoy The Creeping Death, I definitely recommend checking out Horror of Fang Rock.
Very nice.
From the classic era. It's a very cool, creepy story. And, of course, I love creepy stories.
You do love creepy, yes.
So this is right up their alley. And it's very atmospheric and a great one to watch at night with all your lights off in the living room.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just curious, Charles, Is there any new news about the Doctor?
Well, in that rather forced, interesting segue, let's talk a little bit. There's been a little bit of big news this weekend, just actually yesterday, because we're recording this on November 24th, 2019, the day after the 56th anniversary of Doctor Who. So happy anniversary, Doctor Who, that just took place on November 23rd, 2019.
Hard to believe it's been 6 years since the 50th anniversary.
Time just keeps marching on.
Yeah, it does.
Well, yes. Look at this the Creeping Death story that we just talked about. This is 11 years after Donna left the TARDIS. Mm-hmm. So it's been 11 years since Donna Noble was on TV.
Yeah.
And or at least as a companion. And so it's hard to believe it's been that long already, but it only gets worse as you get older, as I'm sure you know.
Absolutely, Charles.
Time is a roller coaster, and that's my roller coaster theory of time, that time goes very slowly up until, like, you're going up a roller coaster hill until you hit about 18, and then it starts going faster and faster and faster as you go down the other side.
Yep.
So as you get older, time goes by much faster. It seems that way anyway. So you get to look forward to that, kids. Good luck.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah. So we had a new Doctor Who trailer they reviewed. So if nothing else, though, apparently the only way they celebrated the anniversary, 56th anniversary, was to release the Doctor Who Series 12 trailer, which was great. It's only a minute-long trailer, but it's very cool. I actually have a breakdown of the trailer on my blog, Damn Good Coffee and Hot, if you want to check that out. I posted the trailer there as well if you're looking for it. It's pretty easy to find, of course, but it's, if you kind of want to know some of the little tidbits, little Easter eggs, one of the cool things that, well, actually, there's several cool things about this trailer. We get to find out, we knew that Jadoon were going to be in this series, but we get confirmation that, hey, the Cybermen are also going to be in this story. And we're getting the return of the Rachnos. You know, the spidery villains from the Donna Noble introduction, The Runaway Bride.
Oh, okay, good.
That Christmas special. So I don't know if we want to talk The Runaway Bride as our Christmas episode. I was going to talk about something else, but I don't know if we want to talk about that. We can talk about that off air. But
okay, good.
But I thought it was interesting. They're bringing back the Rachnos. This is the first time they're back.
Okay, good.
And so what did you think? I'm sure you've seen the trailer. What was your reaction to the trailer?
I was just so happy to see New Who. I'm a big fan of Jodie as the Doctor. I love all three companions. I'm hoping they're each going to get some time this season. But yeah, just so much fun. And very excited to know when we're going to get this. A little disappointed we're not getting a Christmas special.
Right.
I was unhappy last year.
But that's okay. We're going to have you covered here at Next Stop Everywhere. We're going to have we are going to have a Christmas special.
Yes, we will.
So, just if the TV show is going to let us down, don't worry. Next Stop Everywhere has you covered, guys.
Okay.
So.
All right. Perfect.
But yeah, I'm very cool. I'm very glad. It looks like the actress that played Ronnie on the Sarah Jane Adventures, she's going to be the new Rachnos Queen, Skithra.
Okay.
It looks like. I mean, that's what it kind of looks like her. So I believe that's who she's playing.
Okay, good.
And so that's kind of cool that she's going to come back as a villain, a Doctor Who villain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's pretty cool. But
yes.
But we also got to see Stephen Fry, who obviously, if you're a fan of British comedy or whatnot or movies, he's been in a lot of different places. Like he was, he played in he was in Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, and as Sherlock Holmes' brother, and he's been in he was the guide in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie.
Yeah.
You did a really great job as the guide, the voice of the guide.
Yeah.
And he's been a lot of other different places. Finally, we're getting him on Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think
V for Vendetta.
Nice.
He's in V for Vendetta.
Yeah. That's a big casting coup. I'm excited about that. And the rumors they're already starting working on Series 3. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Series 13.
Yes, Series 3 with Jodie as the Doctor was. I was thinking, but yes.
Yeah, so so we're getting Series 13 for Doctor 13.
Yeah, nice. Yes.
I think it's going to be cool.
Very good. Yes.
So hopefully we'll get that before 2022 or whenever,
yes, exactly.
Hopefully we only have to wait a year for Series 13. So fingers crossed on that one. But it looks like there's a lot more action going on in this one. We also got we got to see Lenny Henry, who as a popular British comedian. There's a sketch out there that he did back in the 80s where it's a Doctor Who sketch where the Doctor regenerates and as the first black Doctor played by Lenny Henry. And it's a very funny sketch. So go to YouTube, do a search for Lenny Henry Doctor Who. You probably find it. But it's a very funny sketch. And it's kind of neat to see him, because I remember I've been watching that sketch for 30 years now, and it's cool to have him finally appearing on Doctor Who as well. So
Okay, good.
that should be a lot of fun. So the Doctor looks great. Get like this cool James Bond little riff where they're all in tuxedos and the Doctor's in his tuxedo or her tuxedo, and it's the black tuxedo, which if you remember from David Tennant's era, bad things always happen whenever the Doctor wears that black tuxedo.
Yeah.
So I'm sure this will be no different.
Exactly.
And
yes.
it should be a lot of fun. We get to see 1943 Paris.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Nikola Tesla, the guy who looks a lot like Nikola Tesla, is in this movie, or in this trailer, rather. So it should be fun. It should be a fun series. And
Absolutely.
And there's rumors that we might get to talk about it. It might be premiering on New Year's Day.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, we'll probably having Doctor Who on New Year's Day. But they haven't confirmed that officially yet. It says in the trailer, it says early 2020. But apparently the common thinking is that Doctor Who is going to be back on New Year's Day. We'll see if that happens.
Yes.
Hopefully it does because, hey, we need more Doctor Who rather than later.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. All right. So go check out the trailer and hopefully everybody enjoyed it. All right. Jesse, if
any feedback?
Actually, let's see here. Let me pull up. I don't believe we have any feedback. No, we do not. So
okay.
Everybody's kind of sleeping on this one. The holidays, I get it. They're busy. And,
sure.
We're talking a Big Finish audio as opposed to a regular story. So I get that. But
sure.
Hopefully next time. So, but if you want to reach us here at Next Stop Everywhere, please drop us a line. Next Stop Everywhere, smg@gmail.com. That's Next Stop Everywhere, SMG for Southgate Media Group @gmail.com. Or you can reach us on Twitter @NextStopSMG, or on Facebook, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who Podcast, or on Instagram @Next Stop Everywhere Podcast. That's a lot of places, no excuses. You can drop us a line.
Exactly.
It's great especially if you follow our Facebook page. Lee Leonard, I want to shout out to Lee Leonard, who sent in a great photo of him rocking the new Next Stop Everywhere T-shirt.
He did, yes.
And it looks fab. All kinds of fantastic in it. So if you want to be like Lee, you want to get the spiffy Next Stop Everywhere T-shirt or some other cool Next Stop Everywhere merch, there's a link that I've pinned to the top of the page that you can check out if you want to do that.
Yeah, don't we have a holiday gift guide for
we kind of need
Next Stop Everywhere?
We kind of need to do that. So
okay.
Probably need to step up on that.
Okay.
I've kind of neglected. It's one of the things I've been trying to find time to get to.
Okay.
For all my podcasts, and have not yet. So I haven't forgotten about it, but I'm kind of dropping the ball on that one at the moment.
Okay.
I'll own that. Jesse, where can they reach you on the interwebs?
Well, you can hear me talking about the DC Universe Titans series with Charles, some guy named Charles. We talk about the Titans.
I hate that guy.
Oh, I love that guy. You didn't give him a chance because he's pretty good in this. Where we talk about the Titans, and it's coming up. We are going to have the reveal of Nightwing.
Yes.
Finally
we're getting Nightwing.
Yes, and so then we also talk about we are currently on the Phantom Zone podcast. We are talking about Watchmen, which if you are not watching, you are doing yourself a disservice. It is an amazing series. We also will be spending time talking about coming up on the big CW Crisis on Infinite Earths crossovers, and that will be a lot of fun. Then you can hear me talk Bruce Springsteen and his music and his fandom on Set Lusting Bruce. You can find me on Twitter @JesseJacksonDFW. Charles, how about you?
Well, as for me, of course, you can reach me @CharlesSkaggs on Twitter, @CharlesSkaggs on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, or my blog Geeky Things.
Damn good coffee and hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere, including Doctor Who, including Big Finish audios, the Sarah Jane Adventures, Torchwood, whatever comes down. Also, all kinds of comic book, sci-fi news in my other podcasts for Southgate Media Group, including the aforementioned Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where we're wrapping up Titan Season 2, and the Phantom Zone podcast, where right now we're doing HBO's Watchmen. So much fun talking Watchmen. It's such a great series.
So much fun.
So good. So if you've heard some negative things about it, ignore those people completely.
Yeah,
this is an amazing series, highly recommended by both of us. And not just because we do a podcast. I mean, even if we weren't doing a podcast, we definitely recommend this series. It's so good.
Absolutely.
Very underrated right now. And also Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, who's obviously been a special guest companion here on Next Stop Everywhere. If you've loved Zan here on Next Stop Everywhere, you definitely love us on Ghostwood. We have a ball. We talk Twin Peaks, David Lynch, all kinds of pop culture references. We've kind of been a little on hiatus because of we normally record on Thursdays, but because scheduling, like stuff with Zan, stuff with me, the holidays, like Halloween and Thanksgiving, it's been a little bit of a challenge. Hopefully we're going to record next week sometime, next Thursday, finally get back on track, because we're going to be talking a big episode, The Return Part 8, which was one of the mind-blowing game changers of TV, really, from Twin Peaks Season 3. And we're going to have a ball talking that one, because that was, if you've look up Twin Peaks The Return Part 8, it's an amazing thing. This visually, storytelling wise, it's David Lynch at his best, and highly recommend it.
Oh, good.
All right. So everybody, thank you so much for listening to Next Stop Everywhere. We always appreciate it. And everybody, please come on back, because next time on Next Stop Everywhere, John Takis is returning to Next Stop Everywhere. And so it's great to have John on. He hasn't been on for a little bit. We're going to talk The Macra Terror, which is a previously lost story of Doctor Who from the Patrick Troughton era that's recently been animated for television. And, they brought it back for video, home video. And I've finally got my copy. John's had a copy because he got like a region-free Blu-ray player, so I'm very jealous of him. So he's been able to watch this for a while, but I finally got my Region 1 copy.
Good.
And so we're finally going to be able to talk about this, and I'm looking forward to it. It's right by my television, waiting for me to watch. So I've been waiting until after we talk about The Creeping Death to view it. Looking forward to this. I'm a big Patrick Troughton fan, and with Jamie and Ben and Polly, and it's going to be a lot of fun talking this story with John. So
good.
So everybody, thank you so much for listening. We had a ball. Jesse, thank you once again. And
it's great. Jesse
will be back in a month as we talk our Christmas episode.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that in 3 episodes from now, which will mean Jesse will be back at episode 164. And then when maybe, depending if Doctor Who returns on New Year's Day, Jesse might have to get back into the weekly Doctor Who.
Yes, I will. And I'm ready. I am ready.
You've had you can't say I didn't give you some time off.
You gave me, you were very kind, and I am ready to talk New Who.
All right. I know I've been kind of hogging your time with like Phantom Zone and other stuff, Titan Talk.
A lot of good stuff.
It's a good thing Titan Talk's ending, just in time for us to talk Doctor Who, apparently.
Yes, absolutely. And, that's perfect.
Yeah, so it should work out, hopefully, to when Jesse hopefully comes back. So we'll see about other special guest companions. I may have to kind of push back the special guest companion schedule. But hopefully everybody understands why.
Yes.
And because, hey, it's new Doctor Who, got to talk about that, right? That takes priority. So everybody, thank you again for listening, and we will be back next time for the Macra Terror. John Tack is coming back to Next Stop Everywhere, and we'll see you next time right here, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.